Happy hump day, my friends, and welcome back into another edition of Prime Sports World. I'm your coach, your host, David On Point. Hopping right there as my co-host, Mr. T.J. Hopkins, and we are installing another edition of our NFL offseason previews. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast if you like what we're doing here at Prime Sports World. And on today's episode of the show, we're going to talk about the NFC South, and a bunch of these teams have some very big-time decisions to make this offseason. So buckle in as we talk about your favorite team if you are a fan of the Saints, Panthers, Falcons, and Buccaneers. TJ, happy Wednesday, my friend. How are you?
It's Wednesday.
Yeah? Well, we're going to give you a little more pep in your step as we talk about some NFC South action. Also, I know we talked about it yesterday, how that might be the worst division of football. This might be pretty close.
Yeah, I was at the gym. I'm sorry if there's a bit of an echo. I'm at work right now, and I'm in one of the classrooms. So
okay,
this I had to come in early. Overtime is overtime. But anyway, I was at the gym, and it was literally like breaking news while I was at the gym that the NFL is going to start a virtual measurement to replace first down chains for this upcoming season. And you and I have kind of been the champion of more tech being used.
Well, I mean, if they just follow in the footsteps of the XFL or the UFL, because they had this UFL had this last season, that they've implemented this already.
Like it's to me it's a welcome, because like we've been saying it for years, like technology is too good for human error to be a viable excuse as to why referees get a call wrong or mess up.
Yep.
And I guess if you if you get enough backlash for things, you kind of have to sit back and look at where shit went wrong. Like if you have to use an index card to determine if the ball is meeting the chain for a first down, then what are we doing?
And we'll talk more about rule changes when we get closer to the start of the regular season. But let's talk a little bit about the offseason. Let's talk about these teams right here in the NFC South. Let's first start with the Carolina Panthers, who saw a definite improvement out of Bryce Young from year 1 to year 2, especially after he was benched for Andy Dalton. He really kind of played excellent football down the stretch. They have the 8th overall pick in this upcoming draft. They did not have their second-round pick as part of the the Bryce Young trade from the year ago to the Chicago Bears.
Mm-hmm.
They do have some big-time names in free agency: Austin Corbett, Xavier Woods, Dane Jackson, Jordan Fuller, Shaq Thompson, Sam Franklin, Ian Thomas was a tight end, Nick Scott, Eddie Pinheiro, who was for a very brief amount of time the most accurate kicker in the history of the NFL, but then he missed a bunch of kicks down the stretch of the season, so he's no longer that. David Moore, Brady Christensen, Tommy Tremble, and Cade Mays. They have $29 million in cap space. Dave Canales continues to be the head coach. Dan Morgan, Christy Coleman, GM and team president, respectively. Let's talk about this Carolina Panthers team and how should they approach the free agency and the NFL draft as they try to continue to build around Bryce Young.
I think at number 8, again, if you have a top 10 pick, you field calls for your top 10 pick. You might get surprised. You might get an offer that you can't say no to, and you can kickstart something special. Obviously, you have to hit on said draft picks because a la Vegas Raiders, when they traded Khalil Mack to the Bears, we gave them all the picks, and yet here they are still trying to figure this shit out. But if you're the Carolina Panthers, you're hoping that Dave Canales can build off of Bryce Young's strong finish to the season because I said it last year during the season. Like that was probably Bryce Young's first time in his life that he got benched, that he got told to go sit down and hold the clipboard. Like probably the first time ever where his play, like he just like his good just wasn't good enough, and he was being labeled a bust. Me personally, I don't think you can ever label somebody a bust after one season and inadequate talent around you. That's just completely unfair to that person, to that player. So if at 8, me personally, again, it starts with the trenches. You can't do like Bryce Young can't do anything if he's running for his life or he's flat on his back. So if I'm at number 8, if Will if Will Compton
Uh,
is if Will Compton is not, if he's still on the board, you take him. If not, you get the other the big tackle out of Texas, and you go from there. Or like it, yeah, you go from there, and then at 57, whoever the best offensive player is at that position at
Yeah,
whatever.
whether that be tight end or wide receiver, because those are two massive needs for this football team. Adam Thielen's going into his 34th season. Xavier Legit was a rookie. Jalen Coker was actually really solid for them for spurts. But outside of that, I mean, David Moore is a free agent. None of these other wide receivers on their roster really instill you with all that much confidence. And I do like Javion Sanders, tight end who got injured part of the way through the season, but he's not probably a needle mover. So like they do need to improve the offensive weapons. And I mean, they spent some money in free agency last season. You remember because Damian Lewis brought him in a guard, brought Robert Hunt in a guard.
Mhm,
Ike Ekwonu has just been
mhm.
just kind of okay in the NFL. Yeah, I mean, but on the other side, Carolina, I mean, this is a defense that's actually pretty solid. They were on the football field a lot, so they gave up a lot of points. But like Derek Brown missed a bunch of time last season. He's probably their best defensive player. You insert him back into the lineup. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Excuse me. I'm really surprised they didn't trade. Is it Derek Brown or Dwayne Brown?
they have Derek Brown. He's their defensive tackle. He was he got injured early in the season and did not play again
So
before the trade line. So
he probably didn't have any trade value at that point.
and he's still a very good football player. Like he's up there with one of the best like one defensive tackles in the NFL. He's just not talked about all that much because he plays for
because
Carolina.
he plays for Carolina, and I I would like to see not just continued growth out of Bryce Young. I would like to see growth out of Xavier
Yeah.
Leggett. He only had 41 catches, 439 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He played in 14 games. He started 11 of them. This that's still a first round pick. He was the last pick of the first round, and he's a big dude. He's 6'3", it's like 227. I hate that. Hey, 6'3", 230. You're 6'3", 230, dude. You are massive. He could. I make it a priority as long as he's on the field. I gotta find ways to get him the ball. Like I can see him being like a DJ Moore, Debo Samuel
Yeah, me too.
type dude. Like, hey, I just got to get you the ball. I don't care if
And
it's
how convenient that didn't he? They both go to didn't he go to South Carolina, same place that
uh,
Debo
he,
Samuel went.
he did.
Yeah,
He,
yeah.
he went to South Carolina, and
So
so yeah, like if I think that's the plan going forward. Like at 8, build the trenches. I think they go best.
I think their offensive line is not their biggest need. Like I actually think their offensive line is pretty solid. I think their biggest need is still edge rusher. Like they don't really now that Brian Burns is out of the picture after they kind of fumbled that situation. They don't really have a guy that can generate a consistent pressure on the side. I mean, Shaq Thomason is getting up there in age. Javion Clowney's never been that guy. They could really use a big time edge rusher. And I don't have prospects in front of me or mock draft or anything like that in front of me, but like I think edge rusher is their biggest need. I think their offensive line, in my opinion, is actually pretty good.
Uh,
Like above average to average. I think being able to generate a pass rush, I think is more valuable to this football team next season than their offensive line will be, because I think their offensive line is okay.
well, Ashawn Robinson, Shy Tuttle, DJ Wanham. Like you said, Clowney's never really been a
A big
big sack
sack guy.
guy.
He's more of a run guy, anyways. But
Shaq Thompson. That offensive line. So Austin Corbett is your starting center. So if you really feel that way about him and that offensive line, you start by re-signing him,
Yep.
and I guess you go from there. But me personally, I don't see at 8 if they go offensive line or D line. There's no wrong answer in
I don't.
my opinion.
100%. 100%. From Yahoo.com, their biggest needs when it comes to free agency and the draft is edge rusher, linebacker, and wide receiver. This is YahooSports.com, and I would put probably offensive line depth there at 4. Let's talk about top 3 priorities for the Carolina Panthers. What should they be prioritizing this offseason?
Obviously, continued growth of Bryce Young. We said it fixed the trenches on both sides, and um, more. I would address the secondary because J.C. Horn is really the only one that I'm sure about in Carolina, and it's nothing against like Jordan Fuller, who is a pro's pro, but J.C. Horn is really the only one I have confidence about in that secondary going forward.
Yep, I totally agree with
So
you on
yeah,
that. So we'll see what Carolina ends up doing this offseason as they continue to try to build around Bryce Young. To the New Orleans Saints now, who have the 9th overall pick. I think they just flipped a coin, decided who has, because the Saints and the Falcons have, or Saints and the Panthers have the exact same record. So I think they just flipped a coin. But they have the 9th overall pick in this upcoming draft. They've announced today during the owners' meeting that Derek Carr will be back as the head coach of this, or the quarterback of this football team. The notable free agents, Chase Young, Juwan Johnson, Peyton Turner, who's a first-round pick a few years ago, hasn't really panned out. Lucas K. Jr., Lucas Patrick, and then some other guys. Paulson Adebo, who was a good football player before he got hurt. Will Harris. I don't really care about the rest of these guys, to be totally honest with you. And then the Saints continue to be in cap purgatory. At least they're better than the situation they dealt with last season, but still negative $47 million in cap space. The head coach is Kellen Moore, as he was hired about 2 weeks ago. Mickey Loomis is still kind of running this dumpster fire that is the New Orleans Saints. Dennis Lasaka is the team president. So what do the Saints do in free agency and the draft? Should they bring back Derek Carr? What do you do if you're the Saints? How do you fix this?
Pray. One, number one, I'm not letting Paulson Adebo walk out the door. Not doing that.
No way.
I'm not letting Paulson Adebo unless you're just that cash strapped, which it looks like you are, that you just have no choice but to do that. First things first, I trade Alvin Kamara. I got to get something. I gotta. This kind of irks me because teams that need to rebuild don't address it until it's like way too late. It's like they halfway do it. It's like we're rebuilding, but we're also trying to put a product on the field that's like not contender worthy, but can make a team sweat. Like right now, it's like they trying to put a team out there that could win 7 or 9 games, depending on how things go during that game. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, so at 9, like what should they bring Derek Carr back? Me personally, I think they're looking at it like, hey, we have no shot at getting Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders. 9, taking a guy like Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe or anybody else at 9.
That would be insane.
That's a little too rich. So what I think they're doing is I think they're playing for 2026 if he declares, which I doubt he will. And so if he was to declare, Arch Manning will be QB1 of the 2026 NFL draft. If he declares, and that would be a complete full circle moment
100%.
for the Saints organization and the Manning family, because who played for the New Orleans Saints in like the 70s? His granddaddy. Like his name,
it was only the 90s. Like
whatever.
It's like the 70s.
How, whatever. It's his namesake. His namesake literally played quarterback for the Saints when they was the 18th.
Outside, until Drew Brees walked through that door, Archie Manning had every like any relevant passing record Archie Manning had in
Archie Manning, yeah, Archie Manning had it. So I think that's the long term plan in New Orleans right now. That again, that is
right, man. Oh man, Archie Manning is older than I thought he was. Yeah, he played from 71 to 82. That makes me feel kind of young. Good for me.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen very often.
And so I think that's the plan in New Orleans. Like Derek Carr is at a state where he's basically he's a bridge QB, unless they go out.
I think the problem with Derek Carr and the New Orleans Saints situation is Derek Carr is too good of a quarterback to tank with, but he's not good enough
to win with.
Point. Yeah, he's not good enough to win with. Like it's tough. Like he's good enough to be a guy
again,
that like
bro. It's what I said.
Plays well.
They gonna
if I'm the Saints, I'm releasing Derek Carr. I know that it's probably about like I'm releasing Derek Carr. I'm just gonna let Spencer Rattler and the kid from Fresno State just be the quarterback for this upcoming season, and we're just gonna bottom out. Like the fact that the Saints are even fighting this is ridiculous to me. Like just suck it up. Like I understand you're New Orleans. You've had a good run for the last 20 years, but at some point that good run has to come to an end, and New Orleans just suck it up for one season. Let Spencer Rattler just play, do whatever. Let him do Spencer Rattler things for one season, and just stink. I would trade away the kid from Ohio State, the wide receiver. I would give him Chris Olave. I would give him a new start, and I would literally tear this roster to the bones. And I would restart completely. I mean, because we're talking about Ryan Ramczyk is still a question mark at left right tackle. Trevor Penning hasn't really worked out. Felice Fuaga actually was really solid his rookie season. I mean, you trade Cameron Jordan, see what kind of value you can get for him. You grant him whatever he wants to go out of this situation, and you tear this. That's to be their priority. Tear this roster down to the actual pieces.
Yeah, fully embrace the rebuild.
The problem with New Orleans is that they've been in limbo since Drew Brees retired. Like they haven't really wanted to pull the trigger on a full-fledged rebuild, and they haven't really been competitive.
Truth be told, they've been in limbo for like the latter part of Drew Brees. Like when Drew Brees started to show signs of slippage, when Michael Thomas, who could run a full route tree, was reduced to running ins, outs, and just slants because Drew Brees couldn't throw the ball more than 10 yards. That's when it was like, and I understand, like, you don't want to do that to a guy like Drew Brees, who basically, along with his career, rebuilt the city of New Orleans, hypothetically speaking. Like we know what Hurricane Katrina did to New Orleans. There are still parts of New Orleans that never really rebuilt after Hurricane Katrina, and Drew Brees just comes in, he's a cast off in San Diego. He goes to Miami trying to help Nick Saban's NFL career. The Miami doctors fail his physical. And then so he's like, what am I going to do? And then New Orleans is like, we'll take a chance on you. And the rest is history. And Drew Brees basically, so like you don't want to, if you were the Saints, it was hard to watch Drew Brees out there those last 3-4 years. But you owed him, you felt like you owed him that loyalty to let him go out on his shield and so on and so forth. So like it's very reminiscent of, not reminiscent because it was happening at the same time, of what Pittsburgh went through with Big Ben.
Yeah.
So if you're New Orleans, like I'm tending to, because I completely forgot Cam Jordan was even on the team. And how I do that, I don't know, because I said trade Alvin Kamara. Like, no, you trade. The only one I don't think they trade is Chris Olave. I don't think they move off him, but I think they.
Well, I mean, when Derek Carr's not throwing him hospital balls, he's been pretty good in the NFL.
But I do agree with you to embrace it. Just
let's talk about top 3 priorities for New Orleans. I think
rebuild.
Yeah, there are big free agency needs of just out of from Yahoo Sports, defensive line, and then obviously wide receiver on the other side, of course, Olave, and then they still need to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback, as they are still $51 million in the hole, and that is not going to fix itself overnight.
No,
Uh,
rebuild, and it sucks because the fact that Drew Brees is what top two all time in passing.
yeah, I mean he might be number one. I don't have that number in front of me,
I
but
think because if
well, I
he's
mean
not,
Tom Brady's probably got him because he
I'm gonna
played
say if
1,000
he's not
years.
if he's not one, Brady is definitely one. So he's again he's top two in all time passing. He up there in touchdowns, and the fact that New Orleans as an organization never really put a championship worthy defense around him outside of the one that they got.
Yep.
It's just really unfortunate because like they would have like it's like they had pieces. They had a Cam Jordan for like this whole duration and so on and so forth, but it was like they never had a whole unit. They had pieces where it's just like, oh, all I have to do is avoid that one or two, three pieces and attack everywhere else, and we got you.
Moving on from the New Orleans Saints, let's switch gears to the Atlanta Falcons.
I take
Uh,
that back. I take that back because the NFL screwed us out of a Brady Breeze Super Bowl. So like they
True.
they they had us. They had a championship level.
Yep.
They had a championship level of defense that year, and the worst no call in NFL history robbed us of a potential showdown between two of the all time greats. So I'll take that back. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
To the Atlanta Falcons now, who have only four picks in the
Mm,
upcoming draft. They do
mm,
pick at 15
mm.
overall. They have some big time free agents. Matthew Judon, Justin Simmons, Mike Hughes, Storm Norton, Richie Grant, Eddie Goldman, former Chicago Bear, James Smith Williams. They have negative $5 million in cap space. Raheem Morris continues to be the head coach of this team. Terry Fontenot, GM. Greg Beatles is the team president. How should the Falcons approach free agency and the draft as they appear to be going forward with Michael Penix as their starting quarterback? It's unclear what they're going to do with Kirk Cousins, they have some deadlines. If they release him, it would be a ton of dead money. Or they could decide just to keep him on the roster and have him be a mentor to their young quarterback. I'm not sure what they do. How do they approach that situation, and how do they approach free agency, and what should they do with the draft?
I think that's what they do. I think because he's making too much money, you can't just decide to eat that. I mean, you could, but then you would just look like a goddamn fool and be like, because like if you were just going to eat that dead money, why the hell would you pay him that money to begin with? Especially if the plan at some point in time was to ingratiate Michael Penix into the lineup. Anyway, first off, you already know how I feel about that. If you ain't playing me, if I'm a rookie quarterback and I go to a team like the Falcons, or hell, if I go to any team like that, if I'm not starting week one, don't play me. Don't play me at week 5. Don't play me at week 8. Don't play me in week 10, and so on. Because that's putting me in a position to like what the hell, and especially when they made the move to put Michael Penix in, you were still in this thing. You were still in a divisional race. And again, we didn't see Kirk Cousins going one touchdown to 9, 10 interceptions down the stretch. Like that kind of like so hindsight is 2020. We didn't see Kirk Cousins basically falling off a cliff like that.
Well,
Uh,
it has come out that he was dealing with so I don't know if that's just saving face or whatever, but they said that he was dealing with like an elbow and a shoulder injury that he aggravated in the Cowboy game. I think
well,
that could be a straight up saving face, and so like they're trying to be like, hey, he was banged up last season. Maybe they can get a team to bite at trading for Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I just think that's kind of just owner talk and
No,
just saving face.
because like it kind of does like if you really look at it, it kind of because like when has
It makes sense. Oh, it makes
No,
sense.
that's what I'm saying. Like at any point in his career, did Kirk Cousins ever have a stretch where
No.
he was that fucking horrible? No, it just didn't happen. So I think the timing of it doesn't help them because like you're saying this now when you should have been saying it
100%.
7, 8 months ago. I'm exaggerating on the timeline there because it wasn't that long, but It's so you got four picks. So Matthew Judon, like
I
he
mean,
was a
Matthew Judon, I traded for him. He wasn't good for the Falcons. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. So he was a hot commodity because there was a
I
lot
mean,
of teams
he had 5.5 sacks, but like his impact was really not
not that
non-existent. Really,
nothing. So like, he was a hot commodity. He was on a lot of teams' radar. I know the Bears was after him. I think Detroit was after him, and so on and so forth. But Atlanta gave New England what they was asking for, and because I remember watching Hard Knocks for the Bears, and Ryan Poles was making calls. He was trying to get Matthew Judon here, and he felt like the asking price was a little too rich for his liking. And Ryan Poles caught a lot of hell for not getting Matthew Judon here. And this is one of those where the fans have to get on Twitter. Hey, the apologies got to be as loud as the disrespect, because 5.5 sacks is like, that's really not.
especially since they gave up a second-round pick to acquire him.
Yeah, so like 5.5 sacks.
And
That's
they brought in Justin Simmons too. He's now a free agent, and they don't really have cap space to bring any of these guys back. With 4 picks, I mean, it's going to be tough. I think one of the things that I think the Falcons should really consider doing, not to cut you off or anything, but I think Kyle Pitts should probably be on the move.
absolutely.
I just think that he needs a change of scenery there in
Yeah,
Atlanta, and I think he still has teams are still enticed by his talent, and they'll be like, well, maybe we can give a third round pick and get a third round pick for Kyle Pitts. I know that's trading low on a guy you use the top 10 pick on, but he hasn't worked out in your building. So if you could get a third round pick and you can trade Kyle Pitts, I mean, I would probably pull the trigger on a Kyle Pitts trade, depending on what kind of value you can get back for him. I would also think about releasing Grady Jarrett to save some money as well. I mean, he's getting on the downside of his career. This team needs edge rusher in the worst way.
I agree with the Michael. I agree with the Kyle Pitts statement. Like it's disappointing, because even before Kirk Cousins got there, now like that's kind of like the excuse that people have for him, because like when it was Desmond Ridder throwing the ball, it was, damn, we don't have nobody to get Kyle Pitts the ball. like who the hell's getting him? And then Kirk Cousins get there, and it's not much. It's not that much better. And then like the play that went viral is which is
the
Michael.
game against the Giants.
Yeah, Michael Penix's first interception is because Kyle Pitts can't hang on to the ball.
Yeah, he tried to one hand it, and it flew out of his hand and ended up being a pick.
And it ends up being a pick. And it's like that started the whole conversation of plays like this. It shouldn't be the court, like that shouldn't count against the quarterback for interceptions. And then the next question was like, well, who's at fault? Like, what do you call that? Because it's not a like what would be the stat call for that, like interceptions thrown to the receiver, interceptions thrown because
I mean, there's no way to really. There's no
because because the receiver juggled the ball.
I mean, unfortunately, if you're going to play the quarterback position, you're going to have to if you're going to get all the credit, you're also going to have to take some blame that's unnecessary. So
Yeah, it is what it is. Like, it sucks. It sucks. So if you're Atlanta, you have to try to do something to get more draft capital. Again, like you're not going to fix everything with 4 picks.
I mean, if you can get on the phone, I mean, the Cleveland Browns have 1 million picks. I know they don't necessarily have cap space, but if you could get them to float you any pick at all for Kirk Cousins, and I would be pulling the trigger on that hard,
bro. Because to have a pick in the first round, the second round, 117, what's that, late third?
It's like
late
round,
late,
and then you got the 5th or 6th round pick, maybe.
I think 117. That's probably like 4th round, and then to not have another pick till the 7th.
Yeah,
it's like basically like the end of the 7th round. Like, come on now, what are you doing? So obviously, top 3 priorities. Michael Penix, hey kid, it's you now.
Yep.
full 17. So like let's see what you can do because like they have weapons there too. It's not like
Yeah,
he has
I mean,
scraps.
Drake London. I mean, Darnell Mooney was good last season. You have Bijan Robinson, who might be the most versatile running back in the NFL. You have Tyler Algier, who's still a good football player.
Your offensive line
This
is
is still a
solid.
really good offensive line, even with getting up there in age. In my opinion, I think their number one priority has to be fix edge rush. I think their defense needs some work, especially at the edge. I think they need help in their secondary, as they could be losing 3 starters from this unit.
Mhm.
Um, and then I agree with you. I think they also need to just get more draft capital. Like they need to figure out a way to get more draft capital, whether that be trading away a Kyle Pitts or if that's trading away, Kirk Cousins for 10 cents on a dollar. I mean,
Mhm.
if you get any deal for Kirk Cousins, you jump on that immediately.
It's just
Like if the Jets are like willing to give you literally anything for Kirk Cousins, I would pull the trigger on that too. So
mhm.
Uh, but yeah, from the Atlanta Falcons, the team that won this division and won a playoff game, I do believe, last season, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They have the 19th overall pick. They have some big-time names going into their free agency as well, including Chris Godwin, who's coming off a pretty devastating injury, but should make a full recovery by the start of next season. Levante David, who's the ageless wonder who seems to be in Tampa Bay forever. Greg Gaines, Sterling Shepard, who was really solid after Chris Godwin went down. Mike Edwards, a good safety there. William Golston, Joe Tryon Shoyinka, who was a first-round pick of this football team the year that they won the Super Bowl. And
Mhm.
then they have $8 million of cap space. Todd Bowles, Jason Lake, Brian Glazer is the team president. How should the Buccaneers approach free agency and the draft, and what are their major needs?
Major needs, obviously, it's weapons not named Mike Evans and Chris Godwin.
Well, I mean,
Um,
the Jalen McMillan really stepped up
yeah,
last
he
season.
did. He
He
did.
had a really solid rookie season, a quiet, solid rookie season.
But at the same time, it's like I need in the event of Mike Evans or Chris Godwin going down. But first off, Baker Mayfield, I love his mentality of, hey man, I don't care who out there, goddamn it, I'm gonna win this game. That's Baker Mayfield. Like Baker Mayfield is back. I think he's back to that two-time walk-on he was in college, where
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like
I mean, he was a cast off on Carolina. He was a cast off in Cleveland.
L.A.
I mean, to a lesser extent, LA. But I mean, he was just
But
really a
yeah,
free agent. So like, they just couldn't afford. They had Matthew Stafford. They didn't need. They didn't
yeah,
need Baker Mayfield.
they need Baker Mayfield. So like I think yeah, he's back to that. I'm better than this. I'm better than this guy at Texas Tech, so I'm gonna walk on and I'm gonna take his job. I'm better than this guy at Oklahoma, so I'm gonna walk on and I'm gonna take his job. And what he did at Oklahoma was legendary, so legendary that people talked about him for 2 years before Pat Mahomes was even before Pat Mahomes was even a thought. Like Baker Mayfield was talked about for 2 whole years before people even knew Pat Mahomes' name. And if I'm not lying, so if you're at 19, uh,
I mean, they still have needs in the secondary. I mean, this is a team that has some secondary help they could use in this draft. They could use another weapon. I mean, especially if Chris Godwin walks, which I would be shocked if they let
I
him
would be
leave.
shocked if they let him leave.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I also think what's not being paid attention to, like I would schedule this team every year if it's possible, if I'm Tampa Bay. And this it's low key a budding rivalry between them and the Detroit Lions. Like their games have been ultra competitive, and it's one of those where it's like if they meet up in the regular season, because they played them this year and they beat them 20-16,
Yeah.
and then like they had that playoff. No, that was the Rams. So like it was like it's it's like we right there. So like obviously like I feel like if this Detroit team met Tampa Bay with Tom Brady, like when they had Tom Brady, I think I think Tampa would get the better of them. I would me at 19, I think I would go. I gotta pair somebody up with Vita Vea for as long as I have him. I'm not finna waste. I'm not finna waste Vita Vea.
I mean, they have a desperate needed linebacker. I just mentioned
Yep.
KJ Britt, Levante David, and Joe Tryon Shoyinka. Those are their
Mhm.
three starting linebackers. They're all free agency this upcoming offseason.
Bro, and I think Levante David, I think he stayed. I think Levante David is one of those dudes where it's like, hey, bro, seeing you wear someone else's uniform just wouldn't
I agree with you
feel
on that.
right. It just like, bro, like
And I
retire.
mean, on top of that, I mean, they've done a really nice. I mean, Clay Chansey was really solid his second season in the NFL. I
Yeah,
mean, Vita Vea is one of the top 5 defenders in the NFL, or top 10 for sure.
for sure.
So I mean, they have a needed linebacker. I think their secondary could use some help. They also could use some offensive line help. I mean, Tristan Wirfs is getting a little bit older. Luke Godecki was just okay this most recent season, and Grant Barton was solid as a center his rookie season. And K. Dot is a really serviceable tight end. I mean, maybe you want to upgrade that, but I mean, this is
No,
a
I have no problem with K Dotton. Like K Dotton is, yeah, he's 100% serviceable for them. Payne Durham, XFL legend, UFL legend. I'm sorry, and yeah, keep him. I think you have a nice two-head monster at running back in Rashad White and Bucky Irvin.
yeah.
I
And
think
with Sean Tucker, who's a good football player too. All three of those guys. I mean, you bring back Sterling Shepard too to be your fourth wide receiver. Like this is a football team that's ready to win now. Like they're really, really talented. They are going to have to replace Liam Cohen that we talked about yesterday. Josh Gizzard is now the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think Baker Mayfield may have had a different offensive coordinator every season he's been in the NFL. Possibly.
and not just
Or if not every season, like more than half.
Freddie Kitchens. I think the only time he had some sort of stability was in
Kevin
with Kevin
Stefanski?
Stefanski. Because I think that I think that's one of those situations where like there's an offensive coordinator in Cleveland, but it's only OC by name. Like
All
you
right,
ain't
here we
got,
go.
like you ain't got no shit.
How many offensive coordinators do you think Baker Mayfield has had in the 8 seasons that he's been in the NFL?
All right, because that was my next question. How long? So eight offensive 8 seasons. I'm gonna give him 10 coordinators.
He's had 9 offensive
Damn.
coordinators. 9. Yeah. So
Well, Jalen Hurts has had what 5? He's on his 5th now
yeah.
since he's been the starter.
I mean, anytime you have a successful offense, or if you're in a situation where you're in Cleveland where it's just the world is burning around you, like there's gonna be some turnover on the roster. Just the way it goes.
So yeah, and I just went through their rosters. Like yeah, Levante David's 35, Vita Vea's 30. So it's an old like yeah they gotta get young in all the right places. Anthony Nelson's 27, so he's still good. Jamel Dean is 28. He's a safety. Ryan Neal is 29, another safety. Antoine Winfield is 26. So
He's only 2 seasons removed from winning DPOY, right?
who?
Oh, never mind. He didn't win. No, never mind.
And then you got Deion Jones. He just turned 30, I think. Yeah,
Jones, I thought Deion Jones just retired, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, he turned 30 back in November. So yeah, so like you look at some of the other guys like Yaya Diaby.
Deion Jones played 2 games last season. I don't think he's in the future plans. I don't know, but he didn't play.
Must have been hurt. Shaq Barrett is 32. So yeah, so like
Shaq Barrett already retired once.
And so like your key contributors on your defense, William Golston, 33, Vita Vea, 30, Levante David, 35, Shaq Barrett, 32, and like you said, he's already retired once. He could damn well just say, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm good." And Deion Jones is 30, and like David said, he only played 2 games last season. I don't know if that was due to injury, or I'm finna find that out because ain't no way you just played 2 games and said, "I'm good, bruh."
According to the major needs for teams heading into free agency and the draft, as we mentioned, inside linebacker is a big time need, especially if Levante David ends up retiring. But that linebacking core is getting a little bit older in age, so like they need to boost up that. That could be a direction they go.
He was a late addition to the team.
Oh well,
like Deion Jones didn't get signed till December 10th.
Offensive line is another need. Wide receiver, if Chris Godwin ends up leaving, which I do not think he will. Edge rusher is another need. 46 sacks, the sixth most in the NFL. But they could use more depth there. And then in secondary as well, especially since they really struggled against tight ends, giving up the seventh most passing yards to tight ends last season.
And we not finna sit here and act like they aren't an up right away from. I ain't gonna say they would. I ain't gonna say they would have beat Washington because I think it was a tie game.
Yeah.
That playoff game. I think it was 20-20, and then Zane Gonzalez kicked up. Yeah, it was 20-20.
Yeah, it was tied.
It was tied. So we don't know what happens if he misses that and they go to OT. We don't know. But the last couple years they have been wild card.
They beat down Philadelphia in the wild.
They beat Philly.
They won the division the last 2 years in a row. They beat Philadelphia, and then they were one.
And then they lose. What they lose to? Who they lose to next? Detroit?
Commanders.
Not talking about the year they beat Philly. Then they lose to Detroit. They went to Detroit, right?
Yeah. You know what? I don't remember. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember. Probably.
So. Yeah, so like they obviously like you're asking whoever it was to come in and be like, hey, you know who you're replacing here, right? Even though he was in the latter stage, the twilight years of his career, like he's still Tom Brady.
Yep.
Like so asking whoever was going to be the guy to replace him is a tall task. And in my humble opinion, Baker Mayfield has done more than enough. Bruh, 4,500 yards. Yeah, 4,500 yards.
He's been awesome.
Season. He's been awesome. 41 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. He's been amazing. He was.
Let's talk top three priorities as we wrap up here. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, I think it's still getting younger at inside linebacker. On your defense is really in general.
I think, yeah.
Number two, I mean, I still think you need to bolster up this offensive line. Even though it's solid, but you can always use depth there. And they benefit by they have a lot of draft picks. They don't have a second round pick, I don't think. I'm not sure why, but they don't have one. And then the third priority, I think, just get another edge rusher, another one to put pressure on the quarterback.
This mock draft on Yahoo has them getting Jahad Campbell, linebacker
out of Alabama,
out of Alabama at 19. So me personally, I don't hate that. They also have Ashton Genty dropping all the way to 20, which is not going to happen.
I think if he's there for the Cowboys, I think he's going to be a Cowboy whenever that pick is. So
it's in Tampa. I think if you're Tampa, you look at it. You're looking at your situation like, hey, we are. Hey, it just shows you how fast time moves because you're now already 4 or 5 years since your Super Bowl win.
Yeah.
Crazy how time moves,
and not to mention. I mean, you can make the argument they're the front runner in this division by a long shot, by the country mile.
So you're looking at this like, hey, you dead ass looking at this like, hey man, fuck this division, we got this. I'm worried about Washington. I'm worried about Philly.
Eagle, yeah,
I'm worried about Detroit. Who am I? I'm worried about. I'm worried about the Rams and the Niners. And I ain't gonna be disrespectful to because like Minnesota they did do enough to be in the conversation. So
depending on what the quarterback situation looks
depending on what the quarterback right. So that's who I got. You dead ass going to say I got the division. I'm not worried about Atlanta. Not worried about New Orleans. Not worried about Carolina. I'm looking at Philly. I'm looking at Washington. I'm looking at Detroit, Minnesota, hell, even Green Bay, and LA, the Rams and the Niners. That's who I'm focusing on beating if I'm the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
So this has been our 2025 NFC South offseason preview. We previewed all the offseason for all 4 teams in this division. This has been Prime Sports World. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast if you like what we're doing here at Prime Sports World. I'm, of course, your host, David On Point Huffin. Right there, my co-host, Mr. T.J. Hopkins. And TJ, what do we do here at the Prime, my friend?
We bring the heat. Kind sir.
Yes, sir. Yeet, baby. Yeet. I mean, I'm so excited for the Elimination Chamber. I cannot tell you, man. But anyways, we'll be back here.
Hey, I'm gonna send y'all this mock draft from Yahoo, and y'all you just tell me what you think, because this one has trades. Okay. Actually,
I'll for sure take a look at it. I'll be back here on Sunday where we swing into the NFC North. Give you a preview of their offseason as we can keep chugging along here at Prime Sports World. Also, I'll probably run a show on Saturday previewing the Elimination Chamber, so keep an eye out for that stuff. And here's a quick message from our sponsor.
It was great to see the Hardy Boys back in WWE last night. Yeah, that was great. All right.
Yeah. I'll see you later, TJ. Here's the Huddle Sports Network. Y'all have a good night. Stay safe out there. We'll see you guys this weekend. Peace out.
Welcome to the Huddle Sports Network, where we're breaking boundaries and redefining podcasting. Broadcasting live on 6 different platforms, we're bringing you the latest in sports like never before. Imagine tuning into real-time discussions, expert analyses, and fan interactions all at your fingertips. Each platform offers a unique experience, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. We're not just sharing stories, we're creating a community of passionate sports enthusiasts. Join us as we dive deep into the evolution of podcasting, where every episode is a chance to engage, debate, and celebrate the world of sports. This is where your voice matters and the game never stops. Welcome to the Huddle Sports Network, where we're breaking boundaries and redefining podcasting. Broadcasting live on 6 different platforms, we're bringing you the latest in sports like never before, where sports passion meets podcasting brilliance. I'm Mike, the Bear fan, and alongside Bill, the Packer fan, and our buddy Ken Catalone, we're bringing you an incredible lineup of 38 diverse podcasters. Each one brings their unique flavor to the table, covering everything from game analysis to behind-the-scenes stories. Imagine diving deep into the minds of experts who live and breathe football, sharing insights that you won't find anywhere else.